Welcome to the first episode of Ask Prashanthi. Let's go straight to the questions. The first question is from Pramod Makiredi, and he submitted this question on my website. He's asking, how safe is it getting H-1B approval in consular processing nowadays and for the next few years? Well, to understand the answer to this question, we have to look at what's happening with consular processing under the present administration. As we know, under the present administration, visas is becoming more difficult. There is extreme vetting, and also the processing time is taking longer because a lot of cases are going into administrative processing under 221G. So, of course, every case is decided on a case by case basis, but the approval of your visa depends on your employer's credibility, the documentation that's submitted, and you want to make sure that your employer is not blacklisted and has not had previous issues with at the consulate level or with USCIS. It also depends on the size of the company. The smaller the company, the more difficult it is to get a visa. So I think strong employer, good documentation, job offer documents, proof of availability of job documents will lead to a better result. And we also know that people who work for consulting companies usually have more vetting when compared to people who work in other industries. So that's another thing to keep in mind. But in general, we see that we see two outcomes. Either once you go to the consulate and attend the visa interview, it could be also Dropbox, by the way. And of course, they've changed the criteria for Dropbox. But if it is not Dropbox and you're going for a visa interview, then we are seeing two results. One is you get the visa immediately. The other is that the case goes into administrative processing, and it usually takes 6 months or 3 to 6 months to get a response from them. During this time, they will investigate further about the employer. They could request a FDNS site visit. So the FDNS officers, which is the fraud detection officers, could go and visit the employer, ask questions, send email to the employer, send an email to the end client, visit the end client, just to make sure that there is an actual bona fide job. And if everything goes well, then they will report back to the consulate, and then the consulate will request you to come in and take your passport and stamp your visa. So while we are seeing more vetting, I've also seen in a recent case where there was an FDNS visit. The FDNS officer went to the employer's site and there was no one at the office because it was a remote working day, and they gave a bad report, and then all the visas were denied for that employer. So I'm also seeing employers getting visas approved. So I'm seeing both. But in general, given the climate and given the present administration's extreme vetting policy, I would ensure that your documentations are solid. Your documentation is solid so that you have a better chance of getting an approval. The next question is from Shailesh Narayan, and this is also from website. And Shailesh asks about EB5, and he says, my daughter is on a H1, but the job situation is not that great. What are the options, including EB5, process, and security for invested amounts and pitfalls? So the question is basically about what are the options for EB5. EB5 is an investment-based green card. The requirement is that you invest 800,000 if it's a targeted employment area, meaning if it's an area which has high unemployment, or 1.05 million if it is not in a targeted employment area. And you also have to show that the employer has 10 full-time jobs. The pros of the EB5 is, of course, it leads to a green card, and it does not depend on the employer's job availability. Of course, the employer has to meet the criteria of creating 10 full-time jobs and investing the amount of money. So the pro is, it leads to a green card. The risks or the cons are your money is at risk. It's not a guaranteed return. The requirement is that you put it at risk. There are long waiting periods, especially for India and China. The processing time itself is 4 years, and then there is a wait time, especially if you're not in a targeted employment area. The priority dates are not available. The risk is, of course, is also, the nature of the EB5. You either have to open your own business and invest that amount of money and create that kind of employment. If you're not able to do it, then the money that you invested, might be wasted because you're not able to hire and continue to hire 10 people for that sustained period of time, like for a period of, at least 7, 8 years. Also, if you're using regional center, then you have to make sure that the regional center, you have to vet the regional center and make sure that they don't run away with your money and or they show losses and not able to meet the criteria. So it's important, I think, to use an experienced immigration attorney and a financial advisor especially if you're using a regional center, to vet the regional center. So provided that you are aware of what are the pros and the cons, and you have the ability to invest that kind of money for that period of time, you can go ahead with the EB-5 process. The next question is from Mahesh Kumar Pedineni, and this is again a question that was submitted on the website. My H-1 visa got refused. During the visa interview, when asked the reason, the visa officer told me that there is nothing wrong from my end. I later found out that the employer had issues and queries from USCIS which were unresolved. The employer is now telling me that the petition will be withdrawn due to their budgetary constraints. Please advise on the following. Number one, if the visa is refused, can the petition be transferred and the time frame within which it can be done? Question two, if the petition is revoked, can the petition be transferred and the time frame within which it can be done? Any more on this situation for alternative options? Thank you. In response to this, I would say that you can, in response to your first question, can you transfer your H1 to another employer? If you're presently outside the country and if your visa has been refused, you are cap exempt. You're still cap exempt because you are counted towards the cap. As long as your H1B was not revoked, even if the employer withdraws the H1, you will still be considered to be H1B cap exempt, and you'd have to file a new H1 through a new employer and then go for a visa again. Get a new H1 approved consular processing and then go for a H1 again. There is no time limit within which you need to do this. But please be aware that the definition for cap exempt keeps changing. With the present administration, I haven't seen any change. As long as you have been counted towards the cap before, as long as you had a H-1B approved before, you'll still continue to be H-1B cap exempt. In previous years, I've noticed that they've followed a more stricter interpretation of who is H-1B cap exempt, and they've said that in order to be H-1B cap exempt, the employer should have actually started working on a H-1B. Let's hope that they don't go back to that narrow definition of H-1B cap. As of now, you are cap exempt. The second question was, if the USCIS revokes the H-1B, then is this person still cap exempt? In that case, it's very clear as per the regulation that if USCIS revokes the H-1B, then the person is no longer cap exempt. They'll have to file again a registration under the cap, win the lottery, and then file a new H1 through your employer and then come into the country that way. So you will not be cap exempt if the H1B gets withdrawn, but gets revoked by USCIS. This next question, I don't have a name, but the email address is Manuel MEZAR34. And the question is, has anyone gone to Mexico on advance parole, stayed there, and then traveled to another country and then come back to Mexico before your AP expires and re-enters the US? So basically the question is traveling on advance parole, going to a third country and coming back through uh, the second country. So traveling to multiple countries and coming back on advance parole. Yes, you can go to Mexico and or any other country or travel to any number of countries, and when you're re-entering, you can enter on advance parole. Please make sure that your advance parole is valid and you carry a copy of your 485 receipt along with your advance parole, original advance parole document. So as long as you do that and it's valid, you can re-enter the US using your advance parole. This next question is from, again, I don't have the name, I only have an email address. It's from Ajit Sri GHA Kolapu 3569, and it's from my YouTube. The previous question also was from my YouTube. Ma'am, are the chances of third round of H-1B in 2026? So the question is there likely to be another round of lotteries for the 2026 cap? If you look at historically the past few years, we've always had a second round of lottery. And I believe that there will be another round of lottery this year as well. As we've noticed, the H-1B registrations have been lower than last year. The pick rate has been higher, but we're also noticing that not everyone is filing their H-1B even after getting picked in their registration. The filing rate has decreased, based on which I am thinking that maybe they will not have enough H-1Bs filed to meet the 85,000 cap, and there might be another lottery. So I'm hoping for another lottery. Let's see what happens.